Welcome back to the Keep Going podcast with Vin Kennedy. I'm your host, Vin Kennedy. Today we have a special guest, Kevin. Kevin, you want to give a brief intro?
Absolutely, Vin. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Course,
My name is Kevin Hoegler. I'm an ultra runner from New Jersey. I've been doing it now for about 3 years. I've done everything from a 50K and 6-hour ultras all the way up to 100 miles and 24-hour races. And then this past year, I did my furthest event, which was a stage race. It was 220 miles from Las Vegas to Cedar City, Utah. A lot of my running I do for MS. I was diagnosed with MS when I was 18 years old. So that's kind of my why and what keeps me going. But definitely love ultra running and love all things being out on the road and out on the trail.
Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring, man. Just seeing you out there. I know we had a phone call a while back now over the summer, and I was headed to the gym actually after that phone call, and I was just so fired up, like threw on my story, and I was just like, this is so cool. Like it had me amped up for the day, and it's inspiring to see people doing things that are outside of the norm, right? Like someone obviously gets diagnosed with MS, and it's turned to ultra running. It's generally not the route people go.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
so cool. And it's awesome. And I'm sure you inspire a ton of people in your community, in your circle. And I'm not kidding that. I came across it and it was just like one of those things right away, just fired me up.
That's awesome. No, I'm glad to hear it. And thank you for the kind words. Yeah. It's crazy how life transitions that way, where it's like, I was so into bodybuilding, so into lifting. And then when I got to college and I got diagnosed with MS, I like fell out of love with lifting weights and gained a bunch of weight and did the typical college thing of drinking and having fried food. Like, the story, you know how it goes when you're at school and drinking, getting wrapped up in all that. And by the time I graduated, I was 210 pounds. And to put that into perspective for people that don't know me, I'm only 5'7" on a good day. So I was pretty round, and it took me a while to find running. And then once I found it, it just clicked. It was like, this is something that makes me happy, but also something that was sustainable. And I always felt energized to get out there and go for a run. And it was just like the perfect thing to be put into my life to get back into fitness and health. And I love it as a way to not only run and compete, but for the mental side of it as well. We are just talking before the podcast started, but it's such like a great mental outlet to be able to have something to turn to. And for myself with MS, it's like something for me that I feel so grateful to be able to do. And I always want to be a person that can change the viewpoint of those with MS, because obviously a lot of individuals unfortunately don't experience a similar MS diagnosis like me, where some people unfortunately get a lot worse over time. And I've been really fortunate where I haven't. So I'm always looking at it as I want to give back to the MS community, give back to basically people that can't run. And I'm always grateful to be able to go out and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you have a strong why. And I think it's, people think of, I think you said 220 miles.
Yes.
Like, how does someone do that? And when you have that why, and obviously there's a mentality aspect to you as an athlete that gets you through it as well. But it's that why. And it's you could dig deep and exactly why you're out there, why you're doing it. And it's not for you, it's bigger than you. And it's kind of a driving force for sure.
100%. I totally agree with that.
And so do you kind of want to go into the diagnosis and
yeah,
like, because I'm sure, hearing that news is obviously scary, and you probably, if you want to just kind of bring us back to that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to go all the way back to me being like in the 8th grade. So I start there because I think this was the first time I ever had an MS symptom. So when I was in 8th grade, I started going like numb and tingly, whether it was my feet or my hands. In my freshman year of college, I lost vision in one of my eyes. And I went to an eye doctor, and he basically said, look, you play hockey, you wrestle, there's a good chance you got a bruise on your eye. And the way that MS works is you get these things called flare-ups. And flare-ups can be anything, whether it's fatigue that's really bad, numbness, vision issues, like all different types of things can be a flare-up. So flare-ups usually last only a few weeks, especially when you're just experiencing them. So naturally, my eye got better because that was just part of the way a flare-up happened.
Right.
So fast forward to graduating from high school, I had experienced all through high school, basically numbness, tingliness, all different types of things, and never pieced it together because it's like you're in high school, you're probably growing, could be growing pains. I was healthy, was in some of the best shape of my life because I was playing hockey every day, literally. And then nobody in my family had anything wrong with them. So nobody ever thought anything of it. Freshman year of college came. I went and I was actually running on the treadmill my 4th week of school up at Providence College. And the numbness that I started having started creeping out my legs into basically my knees. And then that night went back to my dorm, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, numb completely from the waist down. So I waited one day because I was like, maybe it'll get better. Maybe this is just something weird. Maybe I tweak something. And then the following day, it was worse than what I had experienced the day before. So I went to the ER and they ran all these tests. And to put into perspective what the numbness felt like, they did this toe test where they took my big toe and they basically moved it. And they asked me, can you tell us which way we're moving it? Like, close your eyes and tell us. And I had zero idea where they were moving it. So couldn't feel my feet. To fast forward to the end, I basically did MRIs, blood work, a spinal tap, and they said, you have a lesion on your spine. It's MS. You should go to an MS specialist. I did that. And then when I got diagnosed, they actually said, when I got my confirmation of my diagnosis, they actually said, you have 30 lesions on your brain and 4 on your spine. So it was pretty advanced MS already by the time I got diagnosed. So it was definitely a shock. It was crazy, not just for myself, but my family took it pretty bad as well. So it was definitely a turning point. But it was definitely hard to have that diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, just being in that place, like just being in that, I couldn't even imagine being in that position. And, you're a young kid dealing with that. Obviously your family's dealing with that as well. And what kind of so is that now you said you kind of fell into like the college norms of drinking, eating bad food. Did you kind of fall into like your own form of like a depression of like, hey, like I'm kind of, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So when I was first diagnosed, I had a really bad few months. I remember crying to my girlfriend, who now I'm dating still. I remember crying to her, like, why is this happening to me? Why am I getting diagnosed? I don't know what my future's going to be like. I had to essentially rebuild confidence that I was going to be okay and like rebuild motivation. So I remember sitting there as a freshman, like watching motivational YouTube videos to try to get myself to be motivated again, just for life, because I felt so like down in the dumps about it. I just felt so upset and didn't understand what was going on. And eventually I got this positive mindset for just like viewing it as MS is out of my control. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then I also looked at it as like, I want to do everything I can for MS and for the MS community. But on the other side of that, I had no desire to work out. I had no desire to better myself. The only desire I had was literally drinking and going out and partying. I had no regard for food as medicine, no regard for food as helping me to lose weight, helping me to fight MS. I just said, screw it. I felt like I had no motivation for lifting it. And I would have here and there, I'd go a few days straight, and then it'd be like 3 weeks, no lifting, no working out, no nothing. So it took me like over 5 years before I got back into even starting to work out again.
Yeah. I mean, listen, people play victim all the time to way smaller. And, obviously everybody's living their own journey, their own path, but way less going on, way less seriousness going on. And they kind of fall into right away, like the easy comfort of drinking, going out, and kind of not taking goals serious or taking your health serious. Like I had a conversation with my family yesterday, my mom and dad, and it's just like, listen, they're not extremely unhealthy, but I think we all live in this world where it's like a couple buckets, where it's the healthy people, the unhealthy, and then these people just in the middle ground that are just waiting to get to the unhealthy, where they're going to play catch up, where it's like, let's just avoid playing catch up. Not everybody needs to run marathons. Go for walks and just eat the healthy food. And obviously, I couldn't even imagine, but to see where you're at now and like what you're doing, it's so cool to be able to turn that around. And I'm sure like if people could have half of that grit and like perspective on the daily, we would live in a way better world. I'll tell you that. It's just
Thank
the
you.
truth, man.
Yeah. I just feel like, much like you said, people don't have to go run a marathon. They don't have to lift it, but it's creating these small habits and these small wins. And I think the problem is, which, I experienced this when I was going through getting diagnosed with MS. And, I do believe like for the saying, it's something along the lines of like the worst thing that's ever happened to somebody is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. So I view it as it's all relative, but I think the problem is that people tend to lean into this idea of it's okay if I don't do anything to try to get over whatever it is I'm experiencing. And I think that's the wrong attitude, because yes, you don't have to solve a problem immediately. You don't have to fix whatever situation you're in immediately, but it's the small steps and it's the small victories that are going to get you to the point where you feel comfortable enough and confident enough to go after whatever it is that you want to go after. And it's not even going after something. It's just changing your life to be a life that you want more. But it starts with one small step. I know it's like cliche, like take the first step, but that's what's going to separate you from the person that you are now versus the person that you want to become. It's just those small steps. And, I think back to sitting in the dorm room watching those YouTube videos. If it wasn't for that, I'm sure eventually I would have got over it. But if I didn't take the step of let me try to get some motivation back in my life, I probably would have sulked in my sorrows for a lot longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's like, it's always talked about, but it's like, no one's coming to save you. And it's like, especially a situation like that, like you have to move, you have to make the first step, exactly like you're saying. And I've been saying something a lot lately, and it's, people always say like, oh, I wish, or I want to do that. And it's like, you're not a tree. Like you don't have deep roots in the ground. You could move.
Right.
You have the ability to move and change your situation. And it's solely up to you.
I totally agree. And it's like I'm not sure if you've heard him say it before, but Cam Hanes, the ultra runner,
Yep.
He says that it really bothers him when people say it must be nice. And I really truly agree with that, because I think we're all capable of doing more towards what we want to do, whatever that is. It's like, if you want to be the best fisherman out there, it's like you can go and you can watch YouTube videos on how to fish well. If you want to be the best, streamer out there or gamer, you can watch videos on how to get better and practice. It's people want to say, I don't have time. And yes, I truly believe there are people that, don't have time, right? Like someone that's working 2 jobs to pay for their family or pay for rent, or there's situations where people unfortunately have to do that. But if we're talking about the vast majority of people that are living these comfortable lives where they're spending 3, 4, 5 hours on their phone, distracted by TikTok, distracted by Instagram, like you have the time to make the changes. And we all get the notification at the end of the week that says your screen time was X, Y, and Z for this week, average daily. It's like, holy shit. It's like, if you take a look at the screen time, it's like, that is 3, 4, 5 hours of my day that is wasted doing nothing, where it's like, even if you just contributed or attributed 25% of that time that you allotted to your phone to something that you actually gave a shit about, your life would be totally different. But people just want to be distracted. I had a conversation yesterday. People are just walking around, and so many people are walking around asleep, just hypnotized by their phones and by the TV and by social media. It's sad. It's honestly sad to see. And it makes me upset. It actually gets me like pretty upset, because I just want people to realize they can do so much more than what they're doing on a daily basis to be happier, to enjoy life more, to get out of a funk that they're in, because we all experience funks. It's just a matter of finding something within you to move forward and lean into that, whatever that is. There's something in you that can help you get out of that funk. It's just a matter of making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's all perspective, right? So like a lot of people will look at, the gaming videos and see a guy like Ninja, or, they look at Nick Bear and it's like, I could never do that. Instead of realizing like, because somebody else could do it, that means it's possible. Like I think that's a big mental switch for me personally that changed a lot, where instead of viewing it as, oh, must be nice for that guy, it's like, no, that guy made it possible. If anything, it just means it's doable now. Yeah.
100%. And I think the reason why people don't view it that way is because it's so much easier for somebody to be like, I can never do that. They have all this time in their life, or they have X, Y, and Z. And it's like, people don't appreciate the sacrifice that somebody has to make in order to achieve whatever it is that they've achieved. And it's a lot harder to look at somebody and go out and be like, okay, well, Nick Bear, for example, he did it, so now I'm going to do it. It's so much easier to be looking at that and saying, there's no way I can do it. So I think that's a problem, and that's something that I actually have been thinking about recently, is like this whole idea of like, we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people, because we're all just on this own journey in our lives where we're at different points. So it's, you look at somebody like Nick Bear, it's like he's been at this for a decade, if not longer. Where if somebody just starts working out or just starts running, they don't realize that you can't have that instant gratification when it comes to trying to succeed and be the best that you can be. It's like you have to fight, like essentially fight for it every day. You have to get up early. You have to find time in your schedule. Like it takes a grind. It takes time. It's not going to just be something that is overnight. And that is another problem that I think people experience is they want this instant gratification of immediate success. And that's just not likely.
Absolutely. No, it's so true, man. It really is. And there's just, I think society as a whole is kind of at a standstill with certain things. And I, it's just tough. I could go on about a lot of that. But so after the 5 years, like so you were kind of in like that slump. What kind of did you find running? And is that kind of what propelled where you are?
Yeah. So I actually found healthy eating first. So graduated from college, weighed 210 pounds. And I started dating my girlfriend again that I was dating when I was in high school. So basically I dated in high school. My current girlfriend, her name is Bria. And we dated and we broke up for 3 years and we got back together. And so she was with me when I got diagnosed with MS, didn't see me for 3 years. We started dating again. And she was the first one ever to say to me, you should consider eating healthy for your MS. And I thought that was like taboo. Like, no way. I'm on medication. I'm fine. Don't need to worry about any of that. So we actually, like, very funny story. We ended up watching What the Health, which is a vegan documentary. And overnight, cold turkey went vegan for a year and a half. And that was like what propelled me into starting to think about like working out again. And I'm not a vegan anymore. I'll just say that I'm not. It lasted a year and a half, and now I swung the other way. And that's besides the point. But after starting to eat healthy, I started losing weight, and I started thinking maybe I should start working out more. And I just still like fast forward to 2019. So this is 2 years after I graduated from college. I was sitting in my apartment, no exaggeration, and I just had this gut feeling in my stomach to go for a run. Like, as crazy as that sounds, no, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I call it divine providence. Like, sitting there in my apartment at the same table I'm sitting at now that I have, I had this just gut feeling, like, go for a run. And no shit, that was how it started.
That's like, yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, it kind of found you.
It did. It's wild. I don't know how, I don't know why, but exactly. It found me. And I went for like a 3-mile run, and then I was hooked. And I remember thinking to myself after I started running, like, oh, I want to run a marathon. And the first thing I ever ran was a 10-mile trail race. And then I thought to myself, oh, I can never do like an ultra, like 100-mile. That's fucking crazy. Like, and then as I started like running more and like thinking about it more, I was like, I want to see what I can do. And then it just morphed into ultra running.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of a lot of people, right? Like, you look at 100 miles, 24 hours or however long, over 24 hours for some people. And it's like, how does anybody do that? But I feel like, I'm not there yet. I will be. But the more you get into it, it's like, it's so doable. And like, it just, not that it's so doable, but it is doable. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. I totally agree. And I tell everybody that, like, that exact like phrase, basically, like, you can run 100 miles, like, it's doable. And I think it just seems like such a massive undertaking, which I'm not saying that it's easy. Running 100 miles is not easy. Like, it's going to suck. You're going to be sore. Your feet are going to be jacked up when you're done. But I tell everybody to just go for it. Like, it becomes so much of a mental thing, and there's so much growth in one 24-hour race or 100-mile race. It basically like fast forward 6 months of growth into one overnight experience. It's the most incredible thing that I've ever done in my life. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Ultra running and doing a 100-mile race and 24-hour race are some of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had.
So it's funny. So like in 2020, I kind of had this like health realization as well, where it was, kind of really taking it serious, really locking in. And that's when the idea of like the 100 miles popped in my head. But at the time I was still hyper focused on physical looks and six pack and like being the most aesthetic that I could be. I feel like if I tried at that time, I probably would have failed. But it's funny because now the only thought of the 100 miles is like mile 80. Like, I want to be in the shit. Like, I don't want everybody, like, I feel like when you think of 100 miles, like, oh, the start's probably fun. And then the end is obviously amazing because you finish. But I'm
Right.
like, I know the growth just from like marathons and doing my own challenges now. Like, I know the growth of like my favorite part of the 4x4x48 for David Goggins challenge was like the 3 a.m. Like, that's what I like. I like the
Yeah.
growth from that. So like now my kind of viewpoint on the 100 miles is like the tough miles, and exactly like you're saying, because I know what it'll do for you mentally. And obviously you felt that and you've been through it.
100%. I couldn't agree more. It's like sometimes being in the shit and like self-inflicted punishment is super beneficial. And it's like, it's just so important to make such a difference. Like,
Yeah.
I think
Propels
it's
growth. Yeah.
100%. It's like you have to dig through and dig deep, and it's like things are gonna suck. And like the last 24-hour race I did was in July, and this is a perfect example of having to dig deep and overcome stuff. Was, it was July 23rd in New Jersey, which is hot. You're running in a sauna, and it was so hot. It was like mid 90s, super humid. And I remember running with at night, and one of my friends was pacing me, this guy Alan, and I remember like complaining to him. I was like, I feel like shit. Like, I don't feel like, and just like complaining. And I had this like moment of realization. I'm like, Kevin, you're sounding like a fucking wimp. Like, you got to pull it together here, guy. And like, I was able to pull it together and start running, and it just gave me a whole new burst of energy. So like, that is the type of like a perfect example of like in the real world where you wake up whenever you want, you go to the office, you work, you come home, you eat dinner, you watch TV for 3 hours, and you go to bed. Like, you're not having to overcome that. It's more of an experience where you like maybe might not ever feel that because you're just in this routine nonstop. So I think you just get such a benefit in an ultra run.
Absolutely. Well, because you find out who you are, because and again, I think a lot of the draw to these races too is that you're not racing anyone, you're racing yourself. And
100%.
I think that's 100%. The point where it's like, it's just such a mental battle. Like, you're battling your mind. And like you said, a lot of people, especially in today's day and age, we don't put ourselves in those type of situations or those types of challenges. So you don't really even know who you are. And I think I'm on like a big self-growth type journey. And I think it's what it's about. It's about challenging yourself. And it's being able to kind of control the variables in a situation like a 100-mile race where you dealt with something like MS, where you have no control over that and you're still able to overcome. But I'm sure, the 100-milers kind of helps you combat MS in a way because of the mental toughness that you built.
I totally agree. I think that's such a good point, because it's like, you run these longer races, and I'm sure you experience it after a marathon too, but there's like a sense of calmness and clarity the days following an ultra marathon for me. So it's go run a 24-hour race, and the next 3 days it's calmness, it's relaxed. Like, my mind is calm, my body's calm. And that sounds like counterintuitive. Like, you just ran 24 hours and you ran 100 miles, your body's probably in the shit and you don't feel well. How are you feeling calm? And it's so hard to explain, and you'll experience it when you run a 100-miler. But the following days are so calming. And some people, like, I don't know that anybody has an opinion on ultra running and MS, because I haven't come across too many people who do it. I've come across some, and they're in the same camp as me, as like they do this because they want to change the conversation around MS and it's important for them. But I think having my body go through ultra running is actually good for my MS. Like, and I'm not saying that because I'm not a doctor. I have zero idea if that's factual. So if anybody has MS listening to this, take it out with a grain of salt. Just want to caveat that. But for me personally, like, I find that it helps me with my MS, and it helps me with keeping my body healthy and keeping me feeling good. Like, it's the little things.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I was actually going to say, like, ask that. Do you think like how active you are is actually helping MS? Because it's probably prolonging some, I can't even think of the word, but it has to be prolonging it to an extent, because you're pushing yourself physically and you're building yourself physically, really. And again, it's also going to the mind. So you're building yourself mentally, and a lot of things, I'm sure, obviously you're in the health space. A lot of things are due to stress. So you're putting yourself in stressful situations, overcoming it. And then, like you said, you're in a relaxed state afterwards. It's probably has to be, again, definitely not a doctor, has to be some sort of like, just because of all the building and the healthy foods and just the structure of the running and everything that's going into it has to be in some sort of way, even if it's not directly from the physical work, helping.
I totally agree. And I think too, it's like when you are passionate about something, right? Like you're chasing a sub-3 marathon. I'm chasing, hopefully getting 110 miles at some point in 24 hours. Like I have these different goals I'm chasing. Like when you are doing anything that you're really passionate about, and that can be bodybuilding, that can be going for a walk every day, that can be running a ultra marathon, it can be whatever it is you're passionate about, like that becomes your lifestyle. So I think me being passionate about ultra running, that has morphed into this lifestyle that has been so good for me in my MS. Like, so I actually went to my MS doctor, and I go twice a year, and all of my lesions on my spine are no longer there. They're gone. So like I had 4 on my spine that are now gone. And once again, I think it's a product. Yes, I'm on medication, but I think it's nothing in my medication remyelinates, right? So nothing in my medication is healing what I have. It just stops things from progressing. So I think that between the medicine that I'm on and the food that I eat and the lifestyle that I live has contributed to my like MS getting better. And that's pretty unheard of for lesions to essentially go away. And it's just this whole lifestyle of being committed to going to bed early, waking up in the morning, like waking up early, I'm saying, eating healthy, working out, keeping a good body weight, building muscle, building your aerobic base, which, the benefit of that is mitochondria in your legs from aerobic training. Your mitochondria get more efficient. In MS, that's one of the things that actually hinders people is your mitochondria isn't as strong and isn't as efficient. So it's like all these things from a lifestyle standpoint help me live with MS. Like I think it makes a massive difference in my life with MS.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think even like you touched on it earlier and just touched on it again, like food is medicine, and people don't get that. And they think and I know, listen, I'm no stranger. I post the shirtless picture probably every other day on Instagram. Like I know what I look like. And yes, it's a lot. I'm well aware. But so when I say things, people think it's like preaching, oh, don't push your fitness on me. It's like, when vegans tell people to go vegan type thing. And I'm not doing that. I'm doing it for the sole purpose of like, I know what it did for me mentally. I know what it's doing for me physically. And food is literally medicine. Like I sat down with my mom and dad yesterday, and they think it's a game. But like you said, the health, like even the medication you're on, most people's medication that they're on is not help. It's not preventing anything. It's
Right.
only like minimizing the damage that's already there. And I think the healthcare system as a whole that's all it is. Like I actually just saw a video. It was like, we have the best healthcare. Somebody said we have the best healthcare out of all the states. And it's not the case. We have the best healthcare after the fact. We have nothing preventative. And the preventative stuff is food, and it's the lifestyle. And that's the tough stuff that goes back to the work that people don't want to do. And it's sad.
100%. 100%. I totally agree. It's, it shouldn't even be called healthcare. And I didn't originally coin this, but I like to use it. It's sick care. It's somebody gets sick, they come in, you slap a Band-Aid on a symptom, and you send them on their way. There's no root cause healing. There's no, let's try to understand what's going on. And it's just a whole systematic issue that I believe is goes on out there, but it's also the same thing too, right? Like I think it's people that they want to take the easy route. If you said to somebody, I can give you this pill, you don't need to change anything, or we can prolong this pill. You can change your diet. You can start walking twice a day, and you can get to bed earlier. They're going to say, fuck that. I don't want to change my lifestyle. At least the majority of people are going to say that. But then you hear people that do make those changes, and they become an evangelist for like passing that message on. It's important. And hopefully with time, somehow people start realizing that health is in their own hands. There's nobody to blame about your health except for certain situations. There's nobody to blame for your health except yourself. And it's unfortunate, but that's the world we're in. And once again, it's another thing. It really upsets me because people don't realize that you can adjust the way that you eat in order to feel better. And this isn't a body weight thing. This isn't a body image thing. This is like genuinely giving a shit about people being healthy and happier and enjoying life more, right? I'm not saying that you have to be this like modeled body type. I'm not saying you have to look like a bodybuilder. What I'm saying is if you shed a few extra pounds, you might be more excited to wake up in the morning. You might be more willing to go walk your dog a little bit further during the day, or you might be willing to, go out more. You might be willing to just have more motivation. And it's just a matter of, changing some habits and feeling a little bit better.
Honestly, couldn't agree more. And it's funny because like I was that guy. I was like six pack chasing, for lack of a better term. And but when you build the confidence and you see the mental clarity that comes with it, that's what I chase now. And it's, like, obviously I do like to look good. I like to feel good, but it's the mental aspects that I get from running, from eating healthy, that really drive me to consistently do it.
100%. And it becomes less about like the way you look. Yes, we all want to look good, but it becomes more about this idea of, I think, chasing growth, right? Because with everything that we do around the fitness side of it, like, you're chasing growth, you're chasing better outcomes, you're chasing better performance. But even if you remove that and you just chase better growth from just like a personal growth standpoint, a mental growth standpoint, an emotional growth standpoint, like, food is going to factor into the way that you feel. And you become more interested in this idea of, wow, I want to be the best version of myself and keep evolving and keep continuing on a track of being the best that I can be. And you start to realize that food is actually a big part of that. If you're trying to be your best, you want to be able to have energy. You want to be able to be focused. You want to be able to be on your A game. And you're obviously not going to be able to always be on your A game, but if you're taking care of yourself, you're always going to be able to show up. And somebody I used to work for used to say that essentially in life, 90% of it's showing up, 10% of it is art. And I think that's a really good thing to think about, because at the end of the day, 90% of it is putting in the work that you're supposed to. And the last 10% is the art. So the art of, dieting, or the art of avoiding processed foods, or the art of adding in 400-meter repeats or doing 800-meter repeats. It's the last 10% that is the art of it. But if you just get the 90% right, most of the time you're going to be on the right path anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's so true. And it really is. And it goes back to a lot of things that people don't want to do, is just consistently show up. And
right.
I say it all the time. And I more have had a big sweet tooth. And I used to just go on these days where it was like, I'd be completely shredded six pack, but every 14 days I'm eating, sometimes I don't even know, 12,000 calories, 13,000, like insane number of calories in a day. And I feel like shit for like 3 days, but it's like, that's how I'm able to restrict myself so much for the 14 days to look that way, to then do it, which is no way to do it. But I used to always say, I'm like, I wish they would just ban certain cookie companies, certain candy companies. Right. And realistically, it's what is at some point, something's going to have to give, as far as people's health is going to decline so much that something's going to have to give, whether, they ban alcohol, or if they ban certain foods, or even if they just start making things cleaner, because it really is, the way it's headed is just so sad, and it's scary that a lot of people have no idea. And I used to even say it too, where it's like, oh, anybody can just get shredded. First off, you can, if you just cut your calories in half, it doesn't really matter what you're eating. If you eat 1,500 calories a day, I don't care who you are, you're probably going to get shredded.
Right.
But
yeah.
It's not the way to do it. And it's scary because a lot of people just don't even know how to eat, which is something that I also thought was very obvious, where it's really not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think people don't realize that food has all this additives in it. Food isn't naturally healthy, right? Like, I think, I look at it now as being something that changed the way I eat. I look at like food, like everything I eat, I like think about like, okay, like what is this? What's actually in it? And having that just awareness is the first step that I think I would say that anybody should do, is just have this awareness of the fact that you have to think about what you're eating. You can't just go and eat whatever, whenever, and just slam food, because it's not gonna help you. And I agree. I think, listen, I love America, right? I'm not bashing our country. I love America. But what I'm saying is the FDA and the shit that goes in our food here is fucking terrible, right? There's a great Instagram account. It's called The Food Babe. And it's basically this woman who shows a lot of comparisons on what's in our food here in America versus internationally. And it's absolutely outrageous. It's like a pretty big difference, because in America, they just throw whatever the fuck they want in food. And then in the EU, they have a lot more stricter rules. It's super interesting. I recommend people check that out, because it'll be eye-opening to realize we have all these additives that other countries banned, other countries think are illegal. And yet in America, we're pummeling this on a daily basis into our system and expecting to not have all these fucking issues.
Well, like you said, and it goes right back to where's majority of the money coming from, and it's healthcare and food. So obviously they're not going to ban the foods that are that we're buying, which is the unhealthy stuff. And then the healthcare system, they need us to be unhealthy, unfortunately, to make the
Right.
money. So and they cycle it right back into advertising for the food, and it's just this vicious cycle.
It's an endless cycle.
Yeah, and it is sad. It really is. And I just wish I wish more people would just understand what it really is, like you said, doing for them, especially on the daily, like, and especially even with runners. You think of carb cycling. I'm sure there's kids out there that just, carb cycling, I'm just gonna slam like chocolate chip muffins all day.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
because people don't know.
I totally, and the thing too that's crazy is once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Like once you're on the other side and you break this idea of I can eat whatever and it's not going to affect me. If I gain weight, it's just natural because I'm aging. Like once you break that viewpoint and you see the fact that there's stuff in our food that we shouldn't be eating, you see that certain foods make you feel crappy. Once you see that, you can't unsee it. And that's something that is super empowering because it's you educate yourself on it, you test yourself, you be your own experiment. You can't unsee that. You're going to always, and look, I'm not saying I always eat clean because I don't. I'd be lying if I said that I did, but I know things that I should eat and I know things I shouldn't eat, and I'm aware. And that's the first step. And truly it's empowering to see it because I know I already said it a few times, like it's just impossible to remove from your brain after you realize that, wow, I feel better when I don't eat X, Y, and Z. I'm going to keep this up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm in the same boat, man. And it's true. And again, nobody eats perfect all the time. And I think that's the one thing that people have to understand is even if you look a certain way, you can still have like the 80-20 diet. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to cut out specific foods, but what you eat majority of the time is what's going to really be your makeup as far as, just everything, you as a whole. And it's
100%. It's 100%. It's garbage in, garbage out. I think
Absolutely.
That's such an important thing.
So I think just a pivot here. I want to get into some questions, and I think something that like I think about, and I think most people, again, when they look at the 100-mile race, it's the first 10 and then like the last couple of miles. But what is mile 80 like? Like when have you hit, like, is that generally like your toughest miles? I'd say like probably 60 to 80, right?
Yeah. So you literally hit the nail on the head. 60 to 80 is the worst part of an ultra marathon, or at least the 100-miler, because it's like, I always call it no man's land. So it's, when you're running, my mindset is usually like, basically you look at it as like clipping miles down to 50. And then once you hit 50, you're like, okay, I'm halfway there. And then through 50, you're kind of on this high of, okay, I'm halfway there. And then you get into 60 to 80 and you don't really have anything to look forward to. Right. So usually that's when you're slumping. Usually that's when it's dark out. You're starting to get pretty depleted on calories if you're not keeping up with it as much as you should be. And then usually that's the point where I'm like in the shit. And then once you hit 80, you feel better, where after you hit 80, you're like, okay, now I'm counting down. Like once you start that countdown after 80, it's like the greatest feeling because you're going to get there and it's right around the corner. It's the matter of let me keep chopping wood. And that's like one of my mottos that I always say to myself when I'm running, is chopping wood. Like just keep at it. You're getting one step closer, but 60 to 80 is definitely the most brutal part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I could only imagine. And I mean, some of your easy runs are 20 miles. So really, when you hit 80, it's smooth sailing.
That's it. Yeah. Zach Bitter says it really well. And Zach Bitter, for those of you that don't know, he's a ultra runner. He's extremely good. Used to be the 100-mile world record holder. He always said that when he got to mile 80, just like you said, Vin, that it was just when you get to that point, you can finish it because you can just mentally think of it as another long run. Like you're just going to get your last long run in of your big training block or your last long run into the week. And that you're going to be able to get those last 20 miles done. Just a matter of getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say? So in 100 miles, like how many calories are you actually consuming within the 100-mile race? Do you know on estimate?
I mean, I don't, and I should know this. So if I'm being so transparent, my nutrition is terrible when I run ultras. Like that's something I should be significantly better at. Mm-hmm. I mean, roughly speaking, I probably eat 300 to 400 calories an hour. Right. Or at least I attempt to do that. So whatever the math is on that, can't do it off the top of my head, but I'm eating a shit ton. I'm trying to eat as much as I can. Electrolytes, I'm slamming sodium, I'm slamming electrolytes, tons of water. I move into like, I'll eat anything. And that's probably the reason why sometimes my nutrition is really bad is I'll go from eating things like gels, like Spring Energy, And then I'll move into things like Skittles and jelly beans. Then I'll be on French fries at the aid station. And then next thing you know, I'm like mixing all this stuff into my stomach. And that's not the best thing. I highly recommend for anybody thinking of running 100 miles, you dial in nutrition. The next one that I run, I'm really going to dial in nutrition for. But I'm probably eating 300 to 400 calories an hour.
Yeah. I mean, but like you said, though, I mean, you're getting to a point where you just need calories. Like your body's so depleted. So it's like, you know, Skittles is definitely going to do the job as far as quick calories. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, and I'm also slamming a bunch of caffeine too, but which I need to get better at that. Right. I mean, I love coffee. I'm somebody that drinks coffee for like the flavor, not just for the caffeine. So I always tell myself before an ultra, I'm going to cut down on caffeine before I head into it. But most of the time I just keep drinking caffeine the same way until the race comes. So I never get that effect where, oh, caffeine during the race is going to give me like a big burst or a big jolt of energy. So I'm usually slamming a lot of caffeine during a race, and sometimes we even do Red Bulls. So that's another thing that I do and something that I need to be better with. But everything's going down the hatch, especially if you're just going for the finish and you're not worried about time and you're not worried about a certain mileage. Like if you're not going for 100 miles and you go, but you want to be out there for the whole 24 hours, it's a totally different race than focusing just on the 24 hours. So, I mean, nutrition's half the battle as well. A lot of people get GI issues, but yeah, I mean, I definitely think people should figure that out. But I would say aim for somewhere between 300 to 400 calories an hour if you're going for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so what would you say is like your biggest why on kind of ultra running as a whole, and what like gets you through like mile 80, and what do you really draw back on in your mind? I know like obviously self-talk is so important, especially in races like that.
Yeah. So for me, usually comes two things that are my why. I think first off, MS. I know we already touched on that, but at the end of the day, I look at myself as being so fortunate. Like I am beyond blessed and grateful for being able to go out and run and train and not have any numbness and have this experience with MS. And I'm really involved in the MS community. So I'm a board member on the New Jersey Metro MS chapter. And so I go to a lot of events. I hear a lot of people getting diagnosed, and some people have really challenging experiences with MS, and ultimately in the worst case scenarios, some people are in reclining wheelchairs and some people can't get out of bed. It's really fucking sad. And like to be somebody that can go out and change this conversation and have somebody, potentially look to me or look at me and be like, wow, and give somebody hope. Like that's my why. And, that's the one side of it is MS, but the other side of it is for myself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that from a standpoint of my entire life, I never felt good enough. And like, even though when I played sports and I thought, I was good and I enjoyed playing hockey and, I played on all these travel teams, etc., I never felt like I was good enough and like self-love or self-approval. And when I'm running and when I'm doing an ultra, I never want to let myself down. So I think building confidence in myself and having that personal growth and finding self-love in an ultra is another one of my whys that I'll always keep moving, because I want to just, ultimately be happy with myself. And I'm not saying that I'm going to destroy myself in order to finish. Like if God forbid anything happened, I'd pull the trigger. I'd quit and say, screw it. It's not worth it. But in a moment where I'm just feeling down in the dumps because I'm tired at 3 a.m, like that's not a reason to quit. And so it's a combination of those two that keep me going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just honestly works perfect right off of that. What would you say is your proudest moment of yourself?
So crossing the MS run in the US. So to explain, the 220 miles that I did from Las Vegas to Cedar City, Utah was for a relay across the United States for MS Run the US. And it's basically the nation's only relay across the US. There's 19 segments. Some people have MS, others don't, but it's all for MS awareness. And it's such an amazing organization. I recommend everybody to look at it and check it out. And if you want to run a segment, I think they already selected for 2023, but check it out for 2024. But crossing that finish line was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. To say I cried after that would be an understatement. I was like bawling my eyes out because it's just such an overwhelming emotional experience. Like, so for me, I'll say that was the greatest experience, was crossing that finish line. It was beautiful. Like I finished Like my girlfriend flew out from New Jersey and drove 3 hours from the airport to see me at the finish line. I had so much support from my friends, my family, my community of people that I have like, been friends with and haven't even like talked to in a couple of years. Like we're reaching out to me. And it was just to be able to do that and travel the distance of 220 miles for MS, for something I care about, and then finish with my girlfriend there, finish with the people that crewed me there. It was just like by far the best experience that I've had.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's so cool. And it goes back to your why. And so it all aligns. And then obviously you have your people there, and it's definitely a moment to be proud of. And how would you
100%.
say you combat like negativity? Like what is something you do personally to combat negativity? And especially, I mean, obviously you put yourself through difficult situations, you've been through difficult situations. So what do you really think is like your key tools to kind of combat it?
So I think when like negativity arises in myself and when I'm training, or if I get negativity from somebody else, I look at it as like, especially with training, it's just like a part of it. Like things aren't always going to go smooth in training, and things aren't always going to go smooth during a race. And it's naive to think that. So I think when negativity comes up during a race or during training, it's let's just bring ourselves back to the current moment and let's just realize, okay, this training is going to get better. I was saying before, I'm dealing with the last little bit of plantar fasciitis, like, adjusting what I need to adjust in order to combat that. And I think negativity is a lot of it's just like self-inflicted, like, and self-imposed, where I think we can just kind of chip away at whatever it is that we're thinking about negatively. It can really change the way that we feel and really change our performance with whatever it is that you want to do. I think from other people, negativity around from other people, it's just worrying about what you can control. Kind of going back to the way they look about MS is it's kind of like a stoic thing, right? Like you only worry about what you can control, and then the rest is out of your control. So it's not even worth spending energy on that. And for the most part, I have a very supportive community. My family supports me doing what I do. My girlfriend does. My friends do. So I don't hear a lot of negativity. The only time I ever hear like negativity around anything I do is like somebody who like misunderstands MS and might make like a comment that they don't realize is they shouldn't make, which I don't care because I've had MS for over 9 years now, where anybody can literally say anything to me and I'll brush it right off. It doesn't matter. But I think in those situations, like for me, if somebody's saying something negative, if it's about MS, I'm usually looking at it from a standpoint of that person most likely doesn't fully understand the disease. So who am I to get frustrated with that? Like that's just somebody that unfortunately doesn't understand. And if it's the right opportunity, I would educate. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of just trying to keep ourselves calm, cool, and collected in order to continue pushing forward on whatever it is that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, and it's funny that this is happening today. And of course, I tweaked my ankle this morning, and right after you get that moment of like, I was in Homedale Park, and I wanted to like literally scream because I'm like, just fuck. Like I hate. It's like the most annoying injury for me personally, and it's just perception though, right? Or perspective, really, where it's like I was able to be out here and run 5 miles. I'll be fine in like a couple of days. And I'm gonna bitch and complain where there's other people that can't run. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think it's just that I draw back personally on gratitude a ton, and I
100%.
think it's so important.
And I think also too, one thing that I think is underrated is being able to take a step back and take a break if you need, right? So like, I think, for the people that we're interested in, like a Nick Bear, David Goggins, Jocko Willink, Courtney Dowalter, like these people that have these crazy mindsets around what they do and can fight through anything, push through anything, are always going. I think it's easy for people like us who are more type A people that go out and put ourselves in situations and train every day and want to push hard. I think one of the things that we sometimes have to realize, and this year taught me this a lot, because I had to take a few weeks off. And by a few, I mean like 6 or 7 weeks off this year from the consistent running that I usually do. And it taught me that it's okay to not be doing something, right? I think there's a difference between distracting yourself, sitting on your phone, doing nothing, and taking care of yourself by taking a break from whatever it is that you're doing. Like it's okay to step away from something that you're doing. Like I had moments this year where running really frustrated me, and I got upset with running, and I was upset because my foot hurt or my leg hurt, and why is this hurting? Like F this, like sometimes we just need a break. Like sometimes you just got to step away from things. And I think that's an important note that people sometimes need to realize. Like I get the David Goggins mentality of stay hard, but I think a better one is there's a guy by the name of Chad Wright, who is an ultra runner and former Navy SEAL. Crazy story. I recommend anybody look him up. It's Chad with 2 D's and then Wright with a W-R-I-G-H-T. But he says, be hard when it gets hard. And I think that is the better message that people should be living, because you can't always be hard. You have to be in touch with yourself. You have to be in touch with your emotions. You have to be able to understand truly what you're feeling. If you're just sinking everything you feel, that's not doing you any good, because it's just going to pop up somewhere else down the line. So be hard when it gets hard. And then those moments when it's hard and it's getting hard, like be hard, dig deep, do what you got to do. But it's okay to not always be on it, to not always be hard.
Yeah, it's so true. I think slowing down is so crucial. And like you said, a lot of people in this space, it's kind of looked upon as like you're like a weakness, and it really isn't.
Yeah.
Because at times, it's what's best. And especially this week alone, I could kind of draw on it. I've had a cold all week, so I probably shouldn't have ran like Monday. And then, obviously run today, tweak the ankle. And it's like, this was my sign to slow down. Like, you got to take this into account.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think too, for me, I have a similar things happen to me where it's, oh, I'm going to push myself. I don't really want to go run, but I'm going to push myself, even though I already ran once today. You get out there and you're dogging it the whole time, and it's not even worth it. It's like, those were just junk miles I probably didn't need. And I probably would have been better off just hanging out and relaxing and recovering more. So it's just a matter of getting to know yourself and doing what's best for you. Right. I think that is a really important point, is check yourself on why you're doing what you're doing and who you're doing it for. Are you doing it for yourself? Or are you doing it to try to please other people and to get outward approval? Because if that's what you're doing, then that's not the right move. Like, if that is all you're doing, you're always going to be chasing that approval from somebody outside of you. And you're always going to feel like you have to do more. And I really struggle with that. And I really struggle with it still. Like, struggling with this idea of like, I always need to do more. And I've definitely made improvements, but take it from me. Like, stop trying to like please people and fit yourself into this image that you want other people to have of you. Just, if you can, work on loving yourself and doing what makes you happy and doing what you're capable of. Sometimes it's not what you want to do, is sometimes not going to align with like what you want other people to see in you or what you want other people to think of you. And other thing I would say is, don't just identify with one thing. Like, I felt like I identified so hard with being a runner that when I had to take time off, I didn't want to, because I was like, well, people know me as a runner. They see me on Instagram posting my runs every day. Like, what if I'm not posting? Or I have to go sign up for this 100-miler, even though I might not be fully recovered and fully ready to do it, because I run 100 miles. That's what I do. Like, try to avoid pigeonholing yourself into a box, because that can just set you up for like failure and burnout.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And it's funny because like something I've actively been working on is, I think for a 27-year-old male, I live a very untraditional life as far as like, I go to the sauna, like I go to the Russian bathhouse, like I go to Bear and Birch. I do a lot of like I meditate regularly. Like I do a lot of almost like monk-like activities. And I think it's funny because I'm trying to open up as much as possible, because again, it goes back to like, you see David Goggins and guys that work out, and it's like, exactly, you need to stay hard and you need to be like this, running on broken ankles and doing this crazy shit all day long. And it's like, I think there's such a key to being vulnerable and having like
absolutely
strength and vulnerability. And I've kind of been trying to outwardly express that as much as possible through podcasts and through my my social media content as a whole. And I think it's very taboo sometimes. And especially, the people that follow you from high school or whatever are probably like, what is this person doing? But at the end of the day, it's who you want to be. And like you said, and when you follow that and you're aligned with that, you're at peace and you're happy. And it's really that's what I'm chasing.
Totally. And I think to that point, right? Like, I feel the same way about the way I live my life. Like, I have people say to me, oh, you should go out more, you should drink more, you should go to the bars. And you have to push back on that, because if it's not your thing and it's not what you want to do, that's okay. Like, we don't need to live these like glorified Instagram lives of going out and partying every weekend and going to bars. It's more about whatever makes you happy. And I think that if I saw people that I went to college with, they'd be like, whoa, like, what happened to you? Like, first of all, like, you used to drink like a fish. You don't want to drink. Like, I think about it, and it's almost a moment of like being proud. I think people should be proud of the fact that they're not just following the crowd and doing whatever the crowd is doing. Because you come across people that they unfortunately don't want to go out or they don't want to drink, but they do because they feel like they should be doing that, or they feel like almost they feel, I don't want to say ashamed, but they feel nervous to not go out or not drink or not do that. So in situations like that, it's like, trust in yourself and trust in the way that you feel, like lean into it. And I'm a strong believer in this, like on this topic, when you start doing things you want to do, people are going to come into your life that confirm that what you're doing is what you're meant to do. Like my friend group now is no shit, all people that do similar things to what I do as far as running, working out, fitness, aspiring to be better, having personal growth. Like that's not what I experienced when I was in college. And it's not, it's like it's like an endless cycle of people coming in and out of your life. So if you're authentic to yourself, like the right people are going to come into your life because you start sending out better energy. You start being more positive. You start posting about what you like. People are going to come and talk to you and want to hear what you have to say, like, and want to get to know what's going on. And then you're going to have your own tribe. And at the end of the day, that's something that's super powerful. And it's a confirmation from, the energy around you, confirmation from the universe that you're doing the right thing. You should lean into it. Absolutely, man.
I couldn't agree more. And like you said, like you feel it too when you're aligned with what you're supposed to be doing and who's supposed to be around you. I feel better throughout my days. Like I know I'm going the right way, whatever that way is. And again, new opportunities open up. Honestly, I feel like weekly at this point, and it's so cool. And you got to be, again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is like, you got to be willing to take that step. And of course, a lot of times it is stepping against the grain. And, if you want better, you have to do better, and you have to be willing to not follow the norms.
Absolutely. You have to, you got to just take the step in the direction that's going to work well for you and be better for you. And it's not easy. It takes courage. And I still don't always take that route. I still don't always go the route of like the road less traveled, but it takes courage, and it gets easier with time. Those repetitions, they matter and they make a difference.
Absolutely, man. And this is the podcast question we always ask. I know you already hit on it, but what keeps you going?
Yeah. So it's definitely just going to be MS, and then also the opportunity to grow and hopefully bring people along with me. I think it's selfish to say that you want to be the only one that's doing it. Like I have had I've had ultra running change my life. I've had eating healthy change my life. And part of what keeps me going is this idea of educating others and helping others to realize that they can start on their own journey, whatever that might be. It might be waking up 5 minutes earlier in the morning. It might be going for walks. It might be whatever it is. I want to hopefully be able to bring people forward with me, because I think that's what humans are supposed to do. I think when you have something good going on in your life, it's not just to make it about yourself. It's about to bring others forward and to bring other people with you and help them on their journey. Because at the end of the day, we all had people help us, and we have people to help us every single day. So it's, if you can pay that forward, I think that's the ultimate thing. And I would say that's a massive part of what keeps me going.
Absolutely, man. I totally agree. And you definitely are. I mean, I'm telling you,
Thank you.
Even that day in the gym, like I was fired up, and it's inspiring. Your story really is. And I share it with a ton of people. And something I say to people all the time is just help the next guy. So, right. It's like Absolutely. If you're in a position to help someone, you help the next guy, they help the next guy, and just a trickle effect. And, hopefully at some point, everybody's being positively affected.
100%. I think that's the goal. It's if we can just make one person go forward towards their dreams, then they make somebody else, and they make somebody else, just a trickle down effect. And eventually, just like you said, hopefully it ends up making, the world essentially a better place where people are happier to wake up in the morning.
Absolutely, man. I really, really appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Of course, brother. Thank you.